that will not be played today. The Ravens and Steelers, as you know by now, has been moved to Sunday afternoon. That decision coming after the COVID-19 outbreak among the Ravens worsened, and the league wants more time to conduct testing and contact tracing. Baltimore adding 3 more players to their reserve COVID list yesterday. The Ravens now have 7 players who've either tested positive or have been identified as close contacts. And then this is maybe the most important part. The team has disciplined a staff member in connection with the outbreak. So let me bring Adam Schefter into the conversation here. It always begins with Schefty with the latest. Schefty, what can you tell us about what's going on in Baltimore, particularly with this staffer?
Well, they are obviously looking into this and to see how this virus spread, as the league is always going to do with contact tracing. And they've identified the individual they think it started with, and now they'll see how and why this happened, why it led to basically the postponement of a game that was supposed to be in prime time tonight that now has been shifted to Sunday afternoon, 1:15, causing an awful lot of changes and an awful lot of Pittsburgh Steelers to be quite upset about this whole arrangement. So there's all sorts of fallout, and this is what the league has preached all year long, that the actions of one individual can impact everybody on an entire team, and in this particular case, 2 teams and a whole country that was waiting to watch that football game tonight. So we'll see what kind of discipline it leads to. We'll see what is the fallout from this particular situation, but obviously it's a situation that nobody wanted. You hope first and foremost that everybody's okay, that the virus doesn't spread, but now also you want answers and you want to make sure that something like this does not happen anywhere else anytime soon.
Right. The one thing we know for sure is they will not play tonight. We do not know with certainty that they'll be able to play Sunday, right? Can you pick up the thought from there? Where does it go from here?
Well, listen, the league planned to play this game on Thursday night, and you'll notice it said all week long, the status of this game remains unchanged. And that will be the case, Greeny, going forward with every game. The status will remain unchanged until it's changed. And so there'll be more testing that's done today and tomorrow and Saturday. But just like the positive tests within the Ravens organization grew from 1 to 3 to 5 to 7, we don't know that it's going to stop there. If it does, yes, they will play on Sunday. The status will be unchanged. But if there are more and more and more positives, and it makes it such that they can't play this game, well, you have your answer right there. So, again, the plan is to play Sunday 1:15. We're planning for that right now. And we'll see how the testing goes in the next 24, 48, 72 hours.
I think it's also important to remind everyone, or to let you know if you don't know, the Ravens are then supposed to play again next Thursday. Baltimore-Dallas is next Thursday's game. So there are a lot of moving parts here, and Schefter will keep us abreast of all of them. But you mentioned the Steelers are upset. Well, they were making no secret of that yesterday. Let me show you some of the reaction from Pittsburgh on social media. We see the first one. That's Chase Claypool. This came out just moments after the announcement of the postponement. He simply tweeted, "What a joke." Juju Smith-Schuster had lengthier thoughts. First, the NFL takes away our bye week because another team can't get their COVID situation together. Now they take away our Thanksgiving primetime game for the same reason. Eric Ebron also posting thoughts yesterday saying, "I'm not going to lie, NFL, this is," and we can't show you the word that he says it is. So let me bring the rest of the crew in. And if you don't remember, the reason they're complaining about the bye week, their game against Tennessee much earlier this season had to wind up getting moved, and it cost the Steelers their bye week. So that's some context of why they're saying what they're saying. But Bart Scott, as you listen to these comments from the Pittsburgh Steelers, what thought goes through your mind?
They come off sounding like children, because you have to understand we're in the middle of a 100-year pandemic. They have to understand and read the temperature of the room. This virus is spreading all over the country, and they should feel blessed that they haven't been, exposed to it. But also understand, is this the unfair competitive advantage that you want when you talk about playing this great rivalry, which is the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers? This is one of the best rivalries in all of football, and this game has huge implications as far as the Ravens being able to have opportunity to go to the playoffs. So you want them to play with about 7 of their players? Is that what makes you feel better? I think maybe what they did is they looked at the film and saw the fact that they got beat up last game. It was the fact that Lamar Jackson turned the ball over in the red area, and not that they dominated the Ravens the first time around.
Dominic, what do you think?
I mean, I get where Bart's coming from, but I also understand being upset if I'm a Steelers player. Like, they feel like they have a Super Bowl caliber team, and they feel like they are in the lead in the AFC, and every game matters. This stuff matters. To have your season disrupted twice And I understand you got to read the temperature. It's a global pandemic. I understand all that. But by all reports, they are following the protocols. They are not having these major outbreaks. To have their season impacted, potentially championship season impacted on 2 separate occasions because of what seems to be some irresponsible behavior by their rivals, not even someone in their own locker room, like that would upset me. I can't be upset at the NFL necessarily because it seems like they're doing the right thing to try to protect these players and not expose them to this. But I understand being upset with the teams who can't get their COVID situation in order, and that impacting your team, impacting your potential undefeated season, impacting your potential first-round bye in the playoffs. That would really upset me.
It could wind up impacting that. We can get as far down the rabbit hole on this as we want to, but this is one of the things that could trigger the mechanism by which 8 teams make the playoffs in either conference this year, which would mean no one gets a bye in the first round. D. Wood, what's your overriding thought as you listen to some of this?
Well, listen, I understand where Bart is coming from. It's the fact that we're in a 100-year pandemic. This is a season unlike anything that the NFL has ever experienced. But at the same time, you know, if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, you've been doing things the right way. You've been following the protocols, doing everything that the league has laid out for you. And then here you have your chief rival within the division, the Baltimore Ravens, and one of their staff members goes out here and not doing what he's supposed to be doing, and now the whole team gets infected, and the game gets pushed back. That affects your preparation. Remember, Greeny, when you're playing on a Thursday, it's not like you're going out there practicing in pads and all those type of things. It's more of like a walkthrough situation. So now the game gets pushed back to Sunday. Now you got to change your calendar. Players are creatures of habit, so I can understand why players are upset in this particular situation.
Yeah, I think this is a case where everyone can be right. It's easy to understand why the Steelers would be upset by all of this, but I actually think Bart makes a good point that perhaps this isn't the time to be pointing out just how inconvenient your life is being made by the circumstances of this pandemic. Hold that thought for just a minute, fellas, because there is an entirely different sort of story from the NFL yesterday. We know the Cowboys in Washington will play their game today. The Cowboys will be playing with heavy hearts after the sudden loss of their strength and conditioning coach, Marcus Paul, who died yesterday, surrounded by loved ones after suffering a medical emergency at the Cowboys facility early Tuesday morning. He was a defensive back with the Bears and Buccaneers for many years. He was 54 years old. The owner of the Cowboys, Jerry Jones, released a statement which reads, in part, Marcus Paul was a loved and valued member of our family. His passion for his work and his enthusiasm for life earned him great respect and admiration from all our players and the entire organization. Our hearts are broken for his family and all the individuals whose lives he touched and made better. I wanted to bring Damian Woody in for a moment here because, D. Wood, I know that you knew Marcus Paul. I'd love you to share a thought, if you would, on this morning about him.
Yeah, Green, this is definitely this is a tough one, not only for me, but for everyone that knew Marcus Paul. And Marcus was with me in New England. He, when I was a young player, this was a man who, showed me the road, taught me the right way to work, particularly, just exercising and taking care of my body. And Greeny, you'll never come across a kind of more humble man than you would with Marcus Paul. And just the lessons that he gave me, during the weight room and because he played briefly in the National Football League, and to be able to pass that on to me, to a young man that was just starting out his career in the National Football League, for me, I'm forever indebted to Marcus Paul, and my thoughts and prayers goes out to his family and to everyone that knew Marcus Paul.
The outpouring of emotion from across the world of football has been really notable and extraordinary for the last few days. And so the Cowboys, again, they will play their game today. They will play it with heavy hearts. And D. Wood, thank you for taking a moment there to remember your friend. And again, we will mention the game is being played today. And so let's take a look at the game, which does have extraordinary implications in this division where all the teams have struggled, but someone will win and make the playoffs. With a win, both teams would give themselves a 25% chance or better to win this division. A loss for either would really impact their chances of making the playoffs. Again, the winner of this game will be in first place in the division heading into the weekend. And so as we look at this as a football game, Dominique, watching the Cowboys play this past week against Minnesota, I thought to myself, that's a team we haven't seen all year long. They just looked different. Why? What did you see?
Yeah, I mean, they got some stops on defense. That was the big difference. I think that even back when Dak was healthy, the major issue was them being able to put together some consistent defensive plays. And they weren't outstanding. They were just pretty good on defense, which is all you need when you have the playmakers that they have on offense. I'm not sure that they're going to be able to repeat that going into this game, but if they can, then I think they become one of the favorites in that division of mediocre to below average teams. So being able to run the ball helps, especially when you're to take pressure off your defense, and Andy Dalton coming back and finding ways to complete passes to those outstanding playmakers, and then those playmakers making improbable plays. I think that is something that you can't always rely on, but you should be able to get that from week to week, every now and then from the Cowboys. So they look a lot better than they've looked in previous games, but I don't trust it, Greeny.
Well, I mean, look, again, to get to 4-7 and first place in the division, you only have to trust them so much. Bart, and we were talking earlier this morning, a lot of this is about the quarterback for you.
Yeah, I mean, when Andy Dalton's at his best, he's a competent quarterback. He's a guy that's above a game manager. But I think, Mike McCarthy finally either got them to buy in by going all Gallagher, and I wonder if he had the face shield on when he was smashing watermelons. But that trick only works once. The problem is, the Redskins the Washington football team comes in this week, and they're bringing in the best pass rush in the past 5 games. Dallas is trying to figure out their offensive line. And if Andy Dalton has to throw the ball more than 30 times, he's going to leave himself vulnerable as they're trying to shuffle out and figure who's going to be the right tackle, the left tackle. I think right now the time is right for Alex Smith. And what a story that would be, Alex Smith coming back and marching his team back to the postseason. He's the best quarterback left in this division, Greeny.
Yeah, they've been an interesting story to follow. Zeke Elliott finally ran for 100 yards last week. They're 25-4 since he got there in games in which he does. Shefty, how about this? What are we hearing coming out of Dallas this week and the way they looked, the tragedy there notwithstanding, and just the football side of it for them?
Well, I think it's all about the emotion of today and how this team basically responds to the events of this week. When you lose somebody that you love so much and care about so much and are asked to play a football game just days later, that is challenging emotionally to do. Now, this has happened to this franchise before. You remember there was a player a decade ago or so that was killed right before a Thanksgiving game. The team responded, came out and played very well. And I think this team will have a lot on its mind. As you mentioned, the heavy hearts that they'll be playing with. And I think there's no way that can't impact the way they play today.
And it's well said, and it will be interesting to see. Again, so much more important than anything that happens on the football field today, but it is a very meaningful game in the division. Meanwhile, let's run the hurry-up, Shefty, and go through some of the other news around the sport. And let's start with the Texans and their injuries as they get set to play today.
Listen, they've already ruled out 2 wide receivers for today's game. Randall Cobb, Kenny Stills not going to play today. They've been ruled out, and so it'll be up to Will Fuller and Brandon Cooks and Kiki QT, some of the other players, to try to step up in the absence of the injured wide receivers. They are not the only team dealing with injuries today. Of course, the team they'll be playing, the Detroit Lions, has their own injuries right now. Kenny Golladay ruled out today. Danny Amendola ruled out today. And the big question involves their running back, DeAndre Swift. But Golladay, with the hip injury, has not played in a little bit of time, had a setback, didn't practice. DeAndre Swift is listed as questionable due to concussion. My understanding is it's unlikely that he's going to play today. We'll get an official ruling here in the next couple hours. We'll see whether he can make it back before the game, but I have a sense that he's going to be down at this point in time. And as for the Chicago Bears, also in the Detroit Lions division, they have yet to name a starting quarterback. Nick Foles did not practice yesterday due to that hip injury. Mitchell Trubisky did practice, and so we'll see how they shake it out this week and what they decide to do. But if Trubisky's practicing on Wednesday and Foles is not, maybe that's the first hint and sign as to what's to come in Chicago as the Bears get ready for a big game against the Green Bay Packers on Sunday, Greeny.
Yeah, we will talk a little more about that one later. We actually will play you what Matt Nagy said. And candidly, listening to him, you became far less certain as opposed to being more certain as to who his quarterback would be this weekend. Meanwhile, very big news from college football yesterday. The legendary coach at Alabama, Nick Saban, testing positive for the coronavirus. He is experiencing very mild symptoms and has begun the quarantine process. He will not be available to coach in the Iron Bowl this Saturday against Auburn. Here is Nick Saban yesterday.
I have confidence in our coaches and our players that they'll be able to do what they have to do. I mean, we all got to live with the consequences of what happens, whether I'm standing there or not. So that's